Hi, welcome to LiTup 365, Spring Session 2. This is All Things Change. So this session, we are going to finish our vision to mission process that we started last session. And we'll talk about the new perspective of who we are. I'm really excited as we move deeper into spring. This season is all about coming to realize ourselves, coming to fully connect with who we are, and starting to see more and more clearly. So as spring moves forward, we won't see the full culmination of our work until the fall. We won't see the fruit, those blossoms. So those spring blossoms are promising to bear fruit. We won't see the fruit until fall, but we'll become aware of the blossoms and where the work is and what we need to do through the summer. So spring is all about that, waking up and starting to see and becoming more and more aware of our journey, of what's being revealed from that seed. And then through the summer, we'll do the work, the final work of cultivating and nurturing that plant into full fruition, so ourselves into full fruition. So spring is all about discovery. Summer will be about digging in and doing some work, but spring is about discovery. So if you did the last session, you had an opportunity to explore vision. And so here I want to talk about vision a little bit. What is vision? And I want to share a story with you about a personal vision journey I encountered that I think really brings this into clarity. So I was doing classes. I was teaching some classes, but I was also taking classes. And there was a class I was teaching. And during that class of teaching, when I teach, I participate in the exercises. Those of you that know me well know that. I do the exercises with you. And so I was doing the exercise in a class I was teaching, and within the class, it inspired a vision. So the class was on creating vision, so seeing that spark of what was possible. And what I saw in my vision was me preparing to, I was in backstage at a conference room. So, you know, the hotel conference rooms. I was backstage where there were a bunch of chairs stacked up, and I was about to speak for about 300 people. And I knew I was, and I was preparing to go out, and I had no fear, none whatsoever. And I was a person at the time that had severe stage fright, like severe stage fright. And I couldn't imagine, how can I go speak in front of 300 people and not be afraid? And I couldn't see me ever getting to that point. And even though I couldn't comprehend it, I believed in vision. At that point, I'd written several books. I had already done mythology for some time, and I thought, okay, this must be true. I can't see it, but this must be its vision. So it has something to teach me. So, okay, I'm in. And this happened around October, and I said, I'm accepting this next step. And then what I did is around November, December, I thought, okay, I'm going to step into this. And what I'm going to do is let the business I currently own fund the classes. So I'm going to let that business pay my bills, and then I'll be able to slowly build this. So I was in that process of organizing my life so I could live that vision. And you've heard me say before, we can't live that way. You can't organize your life to live your vision. You must live your vision, and your life will organize itself. But I thought, okay, this is great. I can, I wasn't consciously aware I was in defiance of that. It felt like I was living my vision because I was ready to step into it and start doing it, even though I was afraid, even though I couldn't imagine speaking in front of people or having something that significant to say. And so I said, okay, I'll use my other business. I'll work on my other business, and then I'll step into this. Within the next few weeks, my other business started to tank. I stopped having income. Everything started to disappear because I took my main focus off that other business and put it here. But it wasn't enough to sustain me. So all of a sudden, everything was falling apart. And I felt so devastated and scared, but I knew that deeper message in me. And I said to myself, oh, I'm trying to organize my life to live my vision. I just need to step into my vision and my life will organize itself. And so what I did is I submitted an email. I was house sitting for someone at the time, and I remember I was sitting in their backyard. They have a nice garden area, and I was sitting there, and I drafted an email to reserve a space to teach a class. The class was going to be my own curriculum, and that I hadn't written. I didn't even know what I was going to write about. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I'm like, I want to do a class, an equinox class, and it's going to be in spring, so I'm going to book this room for whatever Saturday was near March 20th that year. And I just felt inside, this is what I want to do. The minute I hit send on that email, 3 different classes just poured out of me. I sat on that deck and I wrote for hours, and I laid out curriculum on multiple courses. And by the time the person I was house sitting for returned at the end of that weekend, I had a full course written that I was so excited to tell them about, that they signed up that day to take that course. It inspired me to write everything I had written, that I've written, that led to what I teach now. That was the onset of it. But it started with this vision of something I couldn't comprehend, right? And I realized, that I needed to step into it, to allow to pour out of me what I had to say. But I had to take that step of sending the email. I couldn't say, yeah, I'm going to get to it, or yeah, I should, or when I get a chance. So the first step of that, the journey I took, wasn't what I thought it would be. If I'm going to, there's a great quote by Joseph Campbell that says, if your path is laid out clearly before you, it's not your path. Your path is behind you. It's taken one step at a time. That's why it's your path. Not a perfect recitation of that quote, but to that extent. We don't know. If we're going to go in a new direction, create a new thing, we don't know how to get there because we've never been there before. If you decide to schedule a trip to the very tip of Canada and you've never been there before, you need to follow a roadmap that you don't design because you've never been there before. And so I thought I understood what my purpose was, and I lived for 4 years still in that space where I first had the vision, and until I realized this isn't the space, this isn't where I do this, and finally stepped out on my own because I couldn't understand what I was supposed to do. It was just an inkling of a possibility. It was a spring blossom. So it's this fall when the seed is being released. I was releasing the seed, and the seed gave me a spark of what could be. And now here I am, just now, 8 years later, finally coming into the realization that I could easily be backstage preparing to speak to 300 people and be just as calm and centered as I was that day and ready to go. I could do that without even having a curriculum. If somebody just blindly threw me on a stage, I could do that because I'm so grounded in what I do now. I could never see that coming. I could never understand it from what I saw that day because the person I was that day couldn't do that. So many people ask me, why doesn't it bother you to think about your childhood? And I say over and over and over again, it didn't happen to me. The person I was, it happened to. The person I am today, that didn't happen to me. I can't comprehend it because the person I am today doesn't experience that. What I had to change wasn't the world. I couldn't line up the world to give me what I was creating. It wasn't the world I needed to change. It was me, how I was living in it. And I was changing me not to match the world. So it wasn't the world I was changing. I was changing me in the world, but not to match the world. I was changing me to show the world a new way, a new possibility, the possibility of who I am. There was a quote I wrote years ago back when I started teaching these classes. that said, no one person is more inspired than another. We are not here to heal the world. It is when we bring our authentic self to any situation that we see the world is already whole. This is what we're doing, is bringing our authentic selves to our own life. And it's not because we were broken or we shouldn't have or we couldn't have. It was because we're creating a new opportunity. We're creating something new. And so it's not that we're broken or needing to fix ourselves. It's that we are where we are today from what we've learned so far. And we'll be something different tomorrow. And we're forever in that. But if I'm holding on to today, I can't live into my tomorrow. So let's talk about how vision works, because this is what we want to do, is move into this vision state, to be living in this state of realizing vision. So the first thing I want to talk about in this is the difference between visualizing and vision. There are so many programs out there that teach you to focus on a point in the distance and then to imagine yourself, act as if you're in that point. The problem is visualization puts your box around it. So if I had tried to visualize that person standing backstage preparing to speak, if I tried to visualize every day being that person, I would have completely disconnected from it because it was so far beyond my comprehension. So trying to comprehend it from a brain that wasn't it would have been laborious and actually probably would have made me quit. The only reason I stayed, the only reason I engaged, to first go for it, and then to continue to go for it when my business began to fail, and then walk through. I've been trying to expand myself as a business owner. I've been watching a lot on marketing, and as I've been watching, I just hear the same thing over and over again from all these successful people, where they say, I have failed more than I've succeeded. That I was listening to one yesterday that he said, actually, to be an entrepreneur, you need to be comfortable with failure, because you are going to fail every day. Even him, he's extremely successful, and he says, I still fail every day. And the vision is about something to keep us inspired while we fail. The thing that keeps us going. I love it. It's Edison and the light bulb, and that beautiful quote where somebody said, you failed so many times. And he said, I didn't fail. I just found 10,000 ways it wouldn't work. And that's what vision is about. It's about this spark of possibility that's not out there in the distance. It's not. If I focused on being a person in the back room of a hotel in California preparing to speak to 300 people, I am putting that into such a narrow box. Where I am today would feel like a failure. And I feel incredibly successful. I don't know if that day will ever come, and it doesn't matter, because what I'm doing now is the same. I'm still feel the same inside as I did in that vision. It wasn't about the room. It wasn't about California. It wasn't about the hotel. It wasn't about the 300 people. It was about the way I felt. I couldn't comprehend feeling that calm and that centered preparing to walk onto a stage. And now I can. It's really easy for me. I step onto a stage every day, and right now I'm speaking to millions because I'm putting it out on YouTube. And this is my stage. And whether people are in person or online, it's the same for me. It feels identical now. The first time I stepped in front of a camera, so I taught, I've taught groups of people. I've stood on a stage and spoken to large groups of people. And I've sat in class after class after class, doing what I do, right? I've been doing meetups 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a week. for 4 years now. And so that's a lot of sitting in front of people. So I'm comfortable there. When I started to think to switching online, I thought about starting to film myself a year before I actually did it because I was terrified to communicate with the camera. And when I first started, I started just recording the classes I was already doing with other people in the room because I didn't want it to be just me and the camera. And then I tried and it was hard and it was horrible and I hated the recordings because I wasn't myself in them. I was tense and uncomfortable. And now while I'm sitting here and I'm speaking to a camera, actually recording a class, I'm not even live right now. I'm with you. I feel myself in the room with you. I know we're connecting when you go through LiTup, when you work through this course. And you could be one person or 100 or 1,000,000. And I feel it. I feel the space of you there. And I never imagined I could. And that was just a few short months ago, I finally started to record myself. Now I'm in this place where I'm good. I'm good. This camera and I is a moment of you and I for me now. And I never imagined it could be that because I can't be definitively locked into an idea of the back room of a hotel preparing to speak to 300 people. I can't be locked into that visual. And if I'm doing the visual, that's what I'm locked into. If it's saying visualize yourself, visualizing is to bring to mind what we already know. So, of course, if I say visualize a car, you're going to have a car come to mind, and everyone's going to have a different car. But what if there's a car out there that exists that you don't know about? You can't visualize that car. Knowing about accessing things that we don't know about is vision. It's interoceptive. It's the insula interacting with the body to measure the interoceptive state. So it's how I felt in that room. When we're talking vision, it evokes an internally emotional, an interoceptive emotion, not implicit emotion. So it's that internal feeling of something. And this is what triggers us, like when we have PTSD or anxiety or whatever, that emotional memory of that internal experience. That's what repeats. Ask anyone with PTSD. It's not about out here. It's about that feeling inside it evokes. Love is the same thing. It's about the feeling inside that it evokes. We make it about the external things, but it's really that internal, a repeat of an internal experience. And so this is vision. Vision stirs a specific emotional, interoceptive response, right? So I want to shift a little bit from visual versus vision. So I think visual, again, is to bring to mind something you already know. Vision is to grasp a concept you've never considered, right? Bible is a good example of vision, where when they had visions in the Bible, it was about things they didn't know about, right? It's Noah and the ark. So you have that as vision. I want to now separate vision also from dreams and fantasy. This was a big thing in the community I was in. Everybody wanted to interpret dreams. And as I started to study the brain, I came to understand dreams are not visions. They can be about possibility, but what's happening when we dream is. So all these things happen during the day. And then as we go, and then what happens is pressure builds up in the brain from so neurons are shedding atoms and all this stuff is happening. We're constantly shedding, skin's falling off, the body is expelling what it's used and generating new. And so the brain is doing that too. And so the pressure builds up and makes us sleepy. And then we fall asleep. And what happens when we sleep is the hippocampus activates and it starts organizing all the events we've had during the day. So we go through this, right? We've learned that we don't sleep for a body. The body doesn't need sleep. In fact, the longer it sleeps, the worse it is. That's why you're stiff in the morning. That's why people in comas have to have their muscles work or they'll atrophy. The human body is meant to move. And it moves and works. It physically can move, or everything works in the same way it does when you're awake. It's just the brain puts the body to sleep so you don't act out your dreams. Which is what keeps us safe. Now, people that sleepwalk and stuff have an interruption of that chemical, but I don't want to get into that. So dreams, what happens is as we sleep, as we fall asleep, the hippocampus starts to take all these things that have happened. So here I had this day, all these things happened. And what the brain is doing is the hippocampus is assigning those to other memories. So it's making links. So it's saying, oh, I saw a new dog today. Oh, I love dogs. Okay, here's a new memory that links to dogs. And that dog was friendly, or that dog didn't want me to pet it and I feel bad when it won't let me, all these different little rules in our head. And so the hippocampus is organizing that. And then stuff leaks out into our conscious mind. And that's what dreams are, is the conscious mind experiencing the organization of memory, organizing experiences into memory. So, of course, it's only accessing what we already know, the memories that already exist. So, dreams are not prophetic. What they are is they give us a good evaluation of where we are right now. So, if I have a dream, I can evaluate a dream, but what it's telling me is about where I am, where my psychology currently is. The other one I want to separate from vision is fantasy. And this was the biggest question for me. What is the difference between fantasy and vision? Because I was a person who fantasized all the time. Now, fantasy was an addiction for me. I would daydream and wish what life could have been. So I was very pie in the sky fantasy. This is serotonin. But I contemplated it for some time to realize the difference. And that's the fact that fantasy puts our good away from us. It says, oh, one day I will, or if only I could, or any of that. Vision stirs that internal thing right now. We feel the possibility. It's an internal feeling. Fantasy is a potential feeling. I will feel that way if I could get there. And it generally afterwards has a negative impact on the psyche. I talk about this a lot when people talk about this affirmation thing. Kind of like if they affirm, like if somebody tries to go and sit in a BMW because they want a BMW and they're going to smell the leather and all that so they can connect with it. Eventually you have to get out of it. The dealership is going to make you get out of the car. And that crushes us. So fantasy feels good while we're in it, but afterwards, eventually we have to come back and say, that's not my life. So if I say my good is that vision, my life out there is good, then if my life out there is good, then here, by natural order, has to not be good. So vision is about being inspired to do something now that's driven by this desire to create something in the future. I'm not trying to get to something in the future so I can have a feeling. I have a feeling that I want to create something in the future. So it's inside out instead of outside in, right? Fantasy is, if I could get there, then I could feel good. Vision is, I feel so good, I want to go there. So I hope that clarifies that for people. So as we're doing this, as we're holding high vision, this I call this high vision. So we're holding vision about who we are, right? Because that's what we've been working on, is connecting with who am I? What's possible for me to be now? What's out there? What's stirring in me this new potential of identity? We want to connect with what's in the moment. So as we're holding high vision, we're not holding vision. We don't want to hold vision of what's out there. We want to connect with what is in the moment. So instead of doing this fantasizing concept of, oh, that's so good, if I could just have that, then I could. Instead, we're using that internal stirring to prompt action. So we have this vision, this ideal that we're imagining. And that's that question, is what I'm doing right now living in service to my vision? So it's about making choices here that say, I'm committed to this outcome. So if I have a vision of something and I'm worried about achieving it or not achieving, I'm asking myself, okay, so is what I'm doing right in this moment, today, right here, right now, is what I'm doing living in service to that outcome, right? Or is it not? And that's how to live in vision. So vision is our why. It's the essence, it's the internal, the essence of what we're creating. The mission is the how, the practical application. Now, we're going to get a lot more into practical application in the summer. Summer is movement. As we move through April, so we're just beginning April. As we move through April, April is about preparation. So we're preparing as we come into May we're preparing internally to start moving internally so that by June we can be moving physically. So it's that, okay, I'm getting everything organized here so I can pour it out, so I can walk it, right? So we're here to prepare for that movement, but we want to move in the right direction. So we don't want to just move. I can't even count how many times I've just chased after something, run after something. I have a good example. So I had a big, huge epiphany today with this. I'm doing this daily blog I'm sharing, and it's this $1 a day concept where share the journey with me, so I can give people a daily inspiration through challenging times in the world. And part of my realization after was, could I share my YouTube live? I want to be on YouTube because I want to be available to everyone, but could I share that on Facebook live? Because I had an event where I was being interviewed and I was in a Zoom room on Facebook. So I'm like, can I do a YouTube on Facebook? And I looked it up and I can. And all of a sudden I'm like, wow, okay, so I rushed forward with YouTube and I abandoned Facebook, and my Facebook group I feel I've neglected because I'm not giving them this content, and I share the YouTube videos and I invite them to YouTube. But I'm like, I could just be sharing the live event in Facebook. See, it's this opportunity to say, oh, I could give you this. So what I did is I ran really far in a direction that excluded another direction, where if I had slowed down and if I had have looked deeper, I wouldn't have moved from Facebook Live to YouTube Live. I would have brought YouTube and Facebook together. We can run too far in the wrong direction. And it's not that it won't get us somewhere, and we don't have to backtrack and start over, but if we organize ourselves well enough, if we get deeply engaged in where we are and connect with that, then we won't go too far in the wrong direction. We won't be that far off track because, again, we don't know the direction to go. So there are going to be corrections. We're not going to go a perfect straight line forward. We're going to waver, but we want our wavering to look like this and not like this. we go further faster if we can do that. We're creating this thing where we're pushing out this, and we're going to be pushing out this internal part. It's that exhale I was talking about in last session, that exhale. Inhaling is a choice. Exhaling happens naturally, right? So we're breathing ourselves into the world. So I talked about that, right? I talked about that inside out experience, about putting ourselves out into the world, breathing ourselves into the world. We need to gather that breath. So that's what we're doing. We're gathering that breath, that truth of who we are. So we are going to do a reverse goal setting practice this time. And this is our mission. So we did vision, and now we're taking it to mission. We're figuring out from that point, that general point of reference, that compass direction, what step we're going to take today. Because we want to keep all our focus on today. What am I doing today? What am I doing today? So we're going to do that next. And I hope you enjoy this journey. If you commit to this practice, if you commit to this reverse goal setting practice and setting this point and engaging in it every single day, your success is guaranteed, because your vision is going to lead you there. As guaranteed as Noah was building an ark. It's that concept, it's that lesson that says, preparing for that storm is about what I do today. And it's never too late to prepare. It's never too late to prepare for that next thing, that great thing. And this is how we create great things. It's not by just happen chance or someday. It's by day-to-day engagement. And we're only saying 20 minutes. So it's not like we have to give our whole life to it. But we do need to make sure we're exhaling from within. Once we breathe out, it's not playing with that out breath. It's pouring it out, and that's what this is going to be about. So again, I'm really looking forward to this. I hope you enjoy it. I know I do. Reverse goal setting is one of my favorite practices, and I'm always excited as we get closer to summer to be able to do it. And more of our action, our physical action on the ground, will be in summer. More of our expressing ourselves to the world will be in May. But for April right now, we want to prepare. So we want to set this reverse goal setting up. We want to prepare ourselves so that when we step into the world, we are an evolved, stronger being as we step out into that next phase of life and living out that mission. So I will be setting up that reverse goal setting practice. That's what you'll be doing in your questions for contemplation this session. Next week, I will be engaging another part of that practice with kind of weeding things out of the way, because that's part of the organizing, is weeding out of the way what we don't want and getting clarity, so that in May we can move into something with, all the weeds are gone. The plant can freely grow now. There's nothing in its way. So I will see you on the other side of that practice. I will have another exercise set up for you on the 12th, and then I will see you for another session on the 20th. I don't know where that number came from. I will see you for another session on the 20th. I hope everyone has a brilliant journey, and I look forward to connecting with you again then.